Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Feel free to unmute yourself, by the way, students.
Walaikum assalam.
Walaikum assalam. So, my name is Basit, and I'm filling in for Dr. Munir, who's your regular teacher. Obviously, Dr. Munir is a scholar amongst us, and I am definitely not. So, I'll try to fill in as best as I can. So, one thing I would like to do is to maybe just talk to all the students here and just understand from you what you guys discussed in the last class and what's your take on it before we jump into the new topic.
Okay. Aren't you the Urdu teacher?
Yes, I am.
I knew that.
Who's speaking?
Zed Roshan. And
oh, yeah, Zed. That's nice. Okay. You have two other siblings in Urdu class, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you guys. Junaid and Zainab.
I'm Abdullah's sister.
Ah, nice. This is just like, it's like being at home here. Acha. So who wants to go first and just tell me what you discussed in the last class? Zed, since you spoke first, I'm going to ask you. What's your view of what you discussed in the last class? Not the Urdu class, but this class. Radio silence here. Oh, you have to unmute, guys.
I forgot.
Okay, you forgot. Okay, so anybody else wants to take a shot?
Ghazwa Uhud. That's what we were talking about.
Say again?
Ghazwa Uhud.
Ghazwa Uhud, okay. Okay, so based on the notes that I got for this class, I don't think we reached Ghazwa Uhud yet. This is more talking about, the relationship between the early Muslims in Medina with the Arab tribes there, as well as the Jewish tribe in Medina. Did you guys already cover that or not yet?
No, that's the old lesson. We already did that.
We were talking about like the war with like the battle. We were talking about that.
Yeah.
Battle of Badr.
Okay, so what I have is
Battle of Badr.
Yeah, what I have is
no, it was Uhud. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, I don't think I got the material on Uhud. I think it stops just before Uhud. Did you guys cover Ka'b ibn Ashraf? This person from the Jewish tribe who was a poet and who wrote kind of against the Prophet ﷺ? Probably not, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, let me just cover what I have. We'll if it looks familiar, you guys can join me in discussing. Otherwise, I'll cover this and I'll report it back to your regular teacher, inshallah, and then he'll probably cover the Uhud. Okay. So I think the backdrop here is this. When the early Muslims went into Medina, that whole emigration out of Mecca into Medina, in part it was triggered by the request of the tribes in Medina, the Arab tribes in Medina. Anybody remember the names of those tribes? There were two large tribes.
Quraysh and
Hijra.
Yeah, the Quraysh was the name of the tribe in Mecca.
Oh.
Okay. And the Aus, which is
Aus and Khazraj.
And Khazraj, yeah, Khazraj. Aus and Khazraj were the two tribes, and historically they had not been, friendly to each other. So they had, kind of a difficult relationship with each other, and they frequently had battles, and then they'll make up, and then they'll go for some time, and then they'll have battles. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but that seemed to be the mode of, living during that time. Because, if you think about it, the Arabian Peninsula was a very unhospitable place to live. You know what unhospitable means? It has nothing to do with the word hospital. Unhospitable means it was a place where there were very few resources, okay, for people to feed themselves, to do well, to do their business and so on. So it wasn't like, there wasn't like, especially in Mecca, there wasn't like areas where you could cultivate and, have crops and live a farmer's life and so on. So a lot of the only means of earning a living was primarily through trade. What can anybody tell me what that means, trade? Earning a living by trade. Okay, I'm gonna call people by name now. Iman, can you unmute and just tell me what does it mean to earn a living by trade? Yes, somebody had a comment? Shokeb sir? Okay, Iman, go ahead. Can you unmute?
I don't really.
Okay, trade simply
Can I
means.
answer the question?
Yeah.
So living by trade is like some people did stuff that other people couldn't, like make pots, and then like make the pots, and then be like, oh, I'll give you this for money or for food or something else that they needed.
Yeah. And since there wasn't a whole lot they could make themselves. At that time, trade typically meant that you went on a journey to a distant place, and that place may be really famous for maybe some fruits, or there's some special kind of, handicrafts and so on. So you go there, you bring them back, and then you sell them to the local population. And then from the local area, you take something which this local area is strong in, and then you go, let's say you go from Arabian Peninsula to Syria, for example, right? So you take the dates and, some of the other stuff that the Meccans were rich in. They go and sell it to the Syrians, and they buy it from Syrians, let's say, fabrics or, whatever else, and then they bring it back. That's one way to do, to earn a living. This is called trading. So that was a means of doing that. Okay, so why I'm going there is that even in Mecca and in Medina and pretty much in all of the Arabian Peninsula. You know what peninsula means, by the way? Peninsula means a piece of land which is surrounded by water.
But one side is land.
Yeah, it's
just
just
like the Florida peninsula.
Yeah, it is exactly. So it is just barely connected to land. If it didn't have even that much connection, it would have been an island. So peninsula is an island, except not quite. So the Arabian Peninsula was like that. So when you don't have a lot of natural resources, people have to really struggle for. And one way they figured out they would struggle is really just raid each other's resources from time to time. And those raids had become part of their way of living. So they will sit on some major thoroughfare, like a major highway of the time, and then there's some caravan of carrying goods from one place to the other, and then they will just attack them and take their stuff. And that was kind of it was kind of understood as one way to get resources for yourself. Okay, so the two tribes in Medina, Aus and Khazraj, had been fighting. There was some delegation from Mecca who went to Medina because at that time it had become very difficult for Muslims to continue to live in Mecca, because the uncle of the Prophet, Abu Talib, had already passed, who had given protection to the Prophet ﷺ while he was living in Mecca. You have to understand these terms. What does protection mean? Because we live in a different time and place now. We don't understand this. But in tribal culture, if you want to live in peace, you have the security from your tribe. If you don't have your security from the tribe, you are basically exposed. You're vulnerable, in other words. Okay. So the Abu Talib, who was the uncle of the Prophet, he was an elder in the tribe, and he had given protection to the Prophet ﷺ, for living in Mecca. And why did he need that protection? Because once the Prophet ﷺ started preaching his message, it was a challenge to the old guard, so to speak. The established norm of the society was challenged, and that for that reason, a lot of people became really opposed to him, and they said, we can only tolerate so much. This person is preaching against our gods of our ancestors, and everything that we know about them has been challenged, and he's telling us it's not okay to worship, to worship multiple gods, and those gods have been with us for a long time. So it was like a clash of generation and culture. So where was I guess I'm going in too many tangents here, but let's come back. So because of because of the death of Abu Talib, the Prophet didn't feel safe in Mecca anymore. So he had sent some representatives to explore possibilities in this other city called Yathrib. Okay, anybody knows what Yathrib is? Okay, let me call her. Aisha, can you tell us what Yathrib is? What place is Yathrib? Okay, Kutsia, can you unmute? You don't have to know the answer. You don't have to know the right answer. You just have to give me an answer. That's all. We'll make it easy. You don't have to get it right.
Can I answer?
Yeah, please.
It's Medina's old name.
Medina's old name, exactly. The word Medina just simply means the city. Al-Madina means the city. So when we say the city of the Prophet, that means Madinatul Nabi. Okay, so when he sent it, and the two tribes, the dominant tribes in Medina, they found this to be like an interesting proposal, because they said we need somebody who can mediate between the disputes that we keep having with each other. And Prophet ﷺ had that reputation of being like a peacemaker or somebody who could mediate things. So they welcomed that. They welcomed that. So, and that's when he migrated to Medina. And I'm sure you guys had extensive discussion on how that was. He was welcomed with open arms, and on the way he set up a place at Quba, and he designated that as the first masjid in the area. And then he continued, and he started another masjid in Medina proper, in the city of Medina, and then he established a community. He started a community, and he said, okay, anybody who's a migrant coming into Medina, he paired each person with another person from Medina, and they said, I'm creating a sense of brotherhood between the two. This episode is referred to as mu'akhat. Mu'akhat simply means making people brothers. Okay, so that made it easy, because now we live in 21st century here, and we think that traveling to a new place is no big deal. You just take a flight, you go there, and everything is taken care of it. No, it wasn't like that in the 7th century. It was probably one of the biggest sacrifice one could make, was to leave their place of their home area and go to a completely foreign place where they may not have security, they may not have a job, they may not have the resources. So anyway, he created this pairing of one person. Each person from the migrants was paired with a person from the natives of Medina, just to help them establish themselves in the new place. And that worked really well. And slowly the muhajirs, or the people who came from Mecca. So when you hear the words names like muhajir, you hear the name Meccan, you hear the name like Quraysh, they're generally the same people. So the people from Mecca who migrated to Medina were almost all Quraysh. From the Quraysh tribe, they were muhajir, because that's the name in Arabic for migrant. Okay, And obviously they were Meccan because they came from Mecca. So anyway, after some time, there was a market established and people started to, support themselves in their livelihood, and they became independent. And as all of this was happening, another group of people who had been in Medina for a long time was observing all of this. And those were the Jewish tribes of Medina. So they had been there, and they had their own, areas of expertise and strength. The three tribes that are frequently talked about are called Banu Qainuqa. I don't expect you to remember these names. Banu Qainuqa, Banu Nadir, and Banu Qurayza. You know what Banu and Bani means, right? You'll hear these kind of names a lot. Banu, Bani, these are like prefixes. It just simply means children of. Bani means children of. So Bani Israel means children of Israel. Banu Qurayza means children of Qurayza. So that's how, in tribal culture, that's how people identify themselves. Okay, so I'm from the line of Qurayza, so I'm part of that tribe. Somebody said I'm from the line of, line meaning genetic line of Nadir, so they became Banu Nadir, and so on. By the way, just a side comment. Most, it's not just this thing is not just distinct to Arabian Peninsula. This is true for pretty much all of the ancient world. The ancient world was almost everywhere organized around tribal system, and in tribal system, you are part of the tribe through your birth, basically. The family and the clan and the tribe that you're born in, your primary allegiance or primary loyalty is to that tribe and to that clan and to that family. Okay, because right now we live in a culture and society where tribes have become really unimportant. We don't even know a lot of times, 6-10 generations ago where we came from, because there are other ways to claim rights in the society and to have access to resources. You go back a couple of thousand years ago, if you were cut off from your tribe, it was like you couldn't really achieve anything of any significance. So anyway, that's just a side comment. So there were these tribes, Banu Qainuqa, Banu Nazir or Nadir, and Banu Qurayza. And these are powerful tribes, and they all had their special areas of strength. I think when Qainuqa, I read in the notes which were given to me that they were, for example, they were like goldsmiths. So they were very skilled at making jewelry of gold and silver and so on. And I guess as an extension of that, they were very able, craftsmen of swords and instruments of fighting. So they were very proud people, and they were unafraid to fight if needed. And I think similarly other tribes had their own expertise, which I can't recall right now. But what happened was, as there was greater peace between Aus and Khazraj, and that led to more economic, prosperity, which means that, people were able to focus more on their, livelihood and earning money, and they had better lives. And then there are people coming from Mecca who were the immigrants or the muhajirs, and they also did well in establishing businesses and so on. And that created a little bit of a tension with some of these Jewish tribes, because they saw that these newcomers have come in and they have taken over some of our resources in business. And the Arab tribes of Medina, who were the Aus and Khazraj, when they were fighting with each other, they needed to ally with some of the Jewish tribes, and now these guys are not fighting with each other anymore, so they're less dependent on us. So in group dynamics this happens. when you have somebody coming from the outside and they're successful, and the people who depended on you before, they don't depend on you, you kind of feel a little left out, and that can create some sort of a political struggle. And that's kind of, I think, based on the reading that I got, that's what happened. So they were not too pleased with the set of changes which was taking place in Medina. Any questions or comments by the way so far? Feel free to jump in. Okay, you guys can feel free to unmute also. Sarah, can you make a comment here? Oh, were you weren't unmuted by me, right? Can you guys unmute yourself, by the way? I'm seeing it.
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, but I can do it too. Okay, that's good to know, because in the other class, we always have this issue. Yeah, go ahead. Somebody saying you're breaking up. Okay, so I think so they basically, because of this kind of a sense of rivalry and a sense of somebody else is infringing on the limited resources we have and all that, the Muslims started to see some incidents where they would feel a sense of rivalry and maybe some level of adversity coming from these tribes. By the way, I'm sure the teacher covered this in the past. One of the first things that the Prophet ﷺ did after he migrated to Medina was to have a kind of a political treaty, okay, which is referred to in Arabic as Misaq of Medina, which simply means the covenant or the constitution of Medina, which said that in Medina, the Arab tribes and the Meccans and the Jewish tribes will live in harmony, in peace and harmony, and they will defend each other against any external threats. So they were all basically the Jewish tribes and the Arab tribes and the Meccans and the Prophet ﷺ, they had all agreed to this treaty, which is called the Misaq, which was supposed to allow people to live more peacefully and thrive in terms of economics and their livelihoods and so on. So, but when people started to feel this a little bit of a tension between the Jewish tribes and the Muslims, because at this point they saw that the distinction wasn't so much between the Jewish tribes and the Arab tribes of Medina. It was more between Jewish tribes and the Muslims as a whole, because Muslims as a whole had included the people of Medina, Aus and Khazraj, and the immigrants that came from Mecca, or the Meccans. So there were incidences where they would make kind of derogatory comments about the Prophet ﷺ. The one incident that is reported here, that somebody, they started to call, instead of saying assalamu alaikum, somebody started saying assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum is a very kind thing to say, that may God's blessings be on you, peace and blessing. Assalamu alaikum is not very a nice thing to say. It's kind of just, it means like we wish death on you or something really horrible like that. So this was brought to Prophet ﷺ's attention, and he said, don't respond to them in that regard, because somebody did that, and then he said, don't do that. Just say wa alaik. Wa alaik simply means same to you, or something less offensive like that. And then he basically he tried to reach out to the community. Because he understood that the Jews were, in terms of their religious outlook, much closer to the the Muslims because of the shared history of prophethood that we all believe in, that the Jews are the followers of Prophet Musa and many of the prophets before him. So he felt a sense of closeness to them in a lot of the religious issues. And for example, the Jews by the way, one thing I should say here very clearly, which I think confuses a lot of people. In this context, when we say the Jewish tribes of Medina or the Jews in Medina and all that, I want to make sure that's how you understand it. We're not making a statement about Jews of all time or all place, or making any statements about the Jews as a whole, like people who live today or people even who lived in places other than Medina. We're not doing that. This has to be very very focused discussion. So I think a lot of people get confused about this stuff, and they say, well, that's why so and so is happening because the Jews do this. No, we're not talking about the Jews here. We're talking about the Jewish tribes of Medina who lived at that time. Okay, so if anybody has any question on that, let me know. So the Jews used to fast on the 10th day of the month of Muharram, the first month of the year, and the Prophet said, Prophet ﷺ asked them, why do you fast? And they said, this is the day that the Prophet Musa freed the Jewish people from the tyranny of the Pharaoh of Egypt, and that's why we do this as a way of thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that day. And Prophet ﷺ said that we are closer to Prophet Musa than you are, or I think I'm paraphrasing, so or as close to him. So we're going to fast also on that day. So the Muslims used to fast on the 10th of Muharram, and it was considered a required fast until the fasting of Ramadan was made required for the Muslims. And even today, Muslims fast on the 10th of Muharram for that reason. It's not considered a required or obligatory or farz fast anymore, but people do fast. It's highly encouraged that people do that. And then there are other things that the Prophet ﷺ emphasized, and from the Quran, for example, in Quran, there's many places this is talked about, which says the food of the people of the book has been made lawful to you. So this was another something which was part of the Islam and the scripture of Islam, which is the Quran, which sort of, it's good to talk about those things because they bring people together. So, by the way, anybody who doesn't know the term people of the book, unmute and tell me. Otherwise, I'm assuming you know what people of book means.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means too.
Okay, that's very good. I want you guys to be, honest about this thing. Okay, so people of the book is a translation of a term that is used extensively in the Quran, which is Ahlul Kitab. Okay, Ahlul Kitab means, literally it means people of the book. But what it means in the Quranic context is it uses this name as a way to refer to people who believed in earlier prophets who came before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, such as Prophet Jesus and Prophet Moses and Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Noah and so on. Okay, and there were many others in between. So anybody who believed in their message, the way they taught the religion, are referred to in the Quran as people of the book. Because the Prophet Musa or Moses, he was given a book. Who knows what's the name of that book? The book he was given. I'm going to play the Jeopardy music here until somebody speaks. No, 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 no.
I used to know.
Okay, so the book which was revealed to Prophet Musa is called Torah, Torah. In English, The Quran calls it Tawrat, which is close enough. I mean, it's almost the same word. So Tawrat was a book which was revealed to Prophet Musa, just like the Quran was revealed to our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, and what was the name of the book which was revealed to Prophet Isa or Jesus?
The Bible.
The Bible, except the Bible is like an all-encompassing name. When we say the Bible, the Bible is like a whole library of books. Bible is not one book. The book which was sent specifically to Prophet Isa or Jesus is called Injil. Injil, that's the name you will find in the Quran. The word Injil means what? The word Injil means good news. Okay, it means good news. By the way, the word Torah means the law. Okay, so Torah is full of the focus of Torah is on which was sent to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, the prophet of God. The focus of that book is mostly on the law, which is Judaic law, or which is the law, the Sharia of that time. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm using too many technical terms here, but it's hard to teach without it. So I'll try to keep it to minimum. But the book which was sent to Sayyidina Isa or Prophet Isa or Jesus is called Injil in Arabic, and it's called the Gospel. The Gospel, which also means good news. That book talks less about the divine law and talks more about how we should treat each other and how we should be forgiving and talks about the hereafter and so on. So those are the two books that Quran makes reference to, and anybody who follows the message in those books, Quran refers to those as Ahlul Kitab, people of the book. Okay, so remember that from now on. Anything else? Any other question? If you ask a question, you get 5 points. All right. So let me see how many students we have. Sorry, I have a little cold here, it seems. So, okay. So where were we? So basically, and the Quran actually talks extensively about the people of the book, Ahlul Kitab, because that's like a recurring theme in the Quran. It talks about the previous prophets, who they were, what was their message, how did they deliver their message, what was the response of the people who they delivered their message to, and what happened to those people after the prophets left. It talks about Prophet Noah or Nuh, Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Musa, Prophet Isa, Prophet Hud, Prophet Saleh, and others, many others. So this is in fact a very important theme in the Quran that it talks about as to how this whole process goes. And then to sum it all up, it spends a lot of time talking about how the message that Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam he brought, how did he go through these various stages, and what were the points that that are important for us to learn from. So the Quran talks a lot about the people of the book. It talks about, and between the people of the book, it uses some other. Sometimes when it's only talking to the Jewish people, talking about the Jewish people, it may not call them Ahlul Kitab. Ahlul Kitab, it combines the Jews and Christians into one group. Okay, those are the Ahlul Kitab. Ahlul Kitab are people of the book. When it's referring to the people of the Ummah of Prophet Musa or the Jews, it calls them Bani Israel. Have you heard of this name? Just say yes or no.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, Bani Israel. Can anybody tell me what's the meaning of the name Bani Israel? I mentioned this in the first 3 minutes of this class.
It's child.
Yeah, the children. Bani means children.
Yaqub की औलाद.
That's right. Very good. Shabash. So he said the children of Yaqub. Yaqub, but Yaqub is not the same Israel, but that's another name of the same person. So Prophet Yaqub is referred to as Israel in the Quran and in the other Jewish scriptures also. So the children of Yaqub are called Bani Israel. And what is the name the Quran uses for the Christians or the followers of Prophet Jesus? What does it call them? Okay.
Maybe Nasara.
Yeah, Nasara. Exactly, Nasara. For what reason? For the fact that I guess the Prophet Isa, he was from a city named Nazareth, okay, and the people who came from there were called Nazarene. Nazarene is more like the English rendering of it, but in Arabic they were called Nasraniyun or Nasraniyan, and then the plural of that as a group they were called Nasara. I think that the word Nasara is interesting. You know the name that was given to the people of Medina is called Ansar, and Ansar means the helpers. Because in Arabic, Nasar means to help, but the Nasara really uses the same root letters, so it's kind of interesting. So they're in a way they're considered helpers too. Okay, so those are the terminology, and then there's like a couple of ayats of the Quran which are referenced here, which I'm going to read. For example, this one is from chapter 5, Al-Mawrid, and ayat number 5. That says, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Wa ta'amul ladina utul kitaba hilla lakum." That means, and the food of those who were given the book, or the people of the book, is made lawful to you. I spoke about that. And then chapter 2, which I think I would expect many of you to know the name of that chapter in the Quran. Anybody wants to take a guess? What's the chapter 2, surah number 2 in the Quran?
I read it so long ago, I don't remember.
It's called Al-Baqarah. It's the longest surah of the Quran, and Al-Baqarah translates to the cow. So it's the surah in which there's the story of the cow. We'll cover that another time. It's a very interesting story. Okay, so there's the chapter 2, Al-Baqarah, and ayat number 47. Yeah, go ahead. I'm listening. Okay, so ayah number 47 goes like this. Okay, let me tell you why I'm doing this. So before we read the Quran, it is highly recommended and virtuous to start with the statement, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim," that I seek refuge in Allah from the devil, because that sort of spiritually protects us to approach the word of Allah. So A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and then the ayah number 47, Ya bani Israel azkuru ni'mati allati an'amtu alaykum wa inni faddaltukum alal alamin. O children of Israel, remember my blessings. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking. Remember my blessing that I blessed you with, and I exalted simply means I elevated, or I gave you a high rank above all the people of the world. So this is what Quran talks about. And then another one, this one is from, I don't know which I think this is from Surah number 3, Al Imran. I'll just read the translation. It says, "O people of the book," again, by now we know who the people of the book are, the Jewish people and the Christians. Come now to a word common between us, you and us. That means let's come together and talk about what is shared between us. And what is that? That we shall worship none but Allah. Okay? So the Arabic name is Allah, but they may have used another name in the Jewish scripture. But the point is the one and only God who's worthy of worship. That's the one that that's common between us. So now Quran is talking about the Prophet talking to the people of the book and saying, come together and let's talk about what is common between us. And the first thing that's common between us is that we believe in oneness of God. Right now, I mean, we kind of just take that for granted, but in the Arabia of the time, that wasn't the case. There were many people who openly believed in many gods, which was also true of other places in history, such as the Romans and the Greeks, and everybody had like a whole pantheons of their favorite gods. So the concept of one God is central to Islam and to Judaism and to Christianity, and that's one thing that the Quran is asking the Prophet ﷺ to communicate with the people of the book. Okay, so that we will worship none but Allah, and that we shall not associate anything with Him. Associate anything with Him means what? The technical word in the Quran, and even in our languages like in English and Urdu and in Arabic, is shirk. Shirk simply means, shirk doesn't mean that there's nothing exists other than Allah. There things exist, but there's nothing that exists outside of outside of Allah that is worthy of worship. That's what it means. That we don't associate even attributes that we associate to a God, a one God, to anything else. That's what shirk means. So we don't do that. So it's reminding that we don't associate anything with Him, and that none of us shall take others as lords besides Allah. If they turn back, then say, bear witness that we are Muslims. Okay, so like I said, Quran talks extensively about a relationship between Muslims and the people of the book. So basically, like I was saying, because of the newcomers in Medina. Who were the newcomers in Medina, by the way? Somebody raise your hand and speak.
I have a question.
Console.
Yeah, go ahead.
Isn't it A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem Bismillahir Rahim?
Yes, that's a very good question. Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim is written before almost all surahs in the Quran except one. Okay, so when we're starting from the beginning of the surah, it's almost part of it. Okay. However,
one of them only has like the surah title and not Bismillah Rahmanir Rahim.
Correct. That's why I said almost all except one. Yeah, because that surah is because if you understand what the meaning of Bismillah is talking about. I start with the name of Allah, the most kind, the most merciful. Okay, the surah that doesn't have Bismillah before it is not a surah that talks about God's kindness and mercy. That surah talks about God's justice and God's, even punishment. So that's why that surah doesn't have Bismillah before it. It's called Surah Tawbah. But let's answer the question that I think Zaid had, which was why, what's the difference between A'udhu Billah and Bismillah? A'udhu Billah is something that we recite before we approach the Quran. And typically we were starting with something like a new surah which has Bismillah before it. So we say A'udhu Billah, Bismillah, and then we start. But sometimes you're just reading from different parts of the Quran and you're going back and forth, and you're not necessarily starting from the new surah. So you can still say A'udhu Billah and Bismillah both. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you want, you can just start with Bismillah, with A'udhu Billah, and continue reading the Quran. It's a little bit of a technical issue, but it's totally perfectly fine to say A'udhu Billah, Bismillah, and then read. But Bismillah is typically read at the beginning of the surah. But there's nothing wrong with saying Bismillah any number of times that you need to. Did I answer your question or further confuse you?
You answered my question.
Yay!
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you know what the surah that doesn't start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim means? What's the name?
The one that doesn't start?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Surah Tawbah.
No, but what does it mean?
Oh, the Tawbah is, the word Tawbah means to repent. To repent means when you have committed a sin, right? When you have done something which is against the teachings of your faith or the teachings of God, that's a mistake. And now as soon as you realize that mistake, you return to God for forgiveness. That act is called Tawbah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Zainab, I haven't heard from you yet. Libya and Abdullah. Qudsiya. Amina.
Excuse me?
Yes.
I just want to tell you it's pronounced Liba.
Oh, sorry, Laiba.
It's okay.
Yeah, sorry, my mistake. Laiba. Okay, you want to make a comment, Laiba?
No, I have no question.
Hey, give some feedback to the substitute teacher here,
Your microphone's set really high.
Really?
Yeah, like when you joined the class, I had my volume at 100 and it was like really loud.
Oh, so you can lower that, right? So it's too
Yeah,
loud?
I lowered mine, but you're still pretty loud.
I'm just so much excited, Okay, let's say there's another Aisha, I think. Mysha. Who's that? I'm gonna unmute. Okay, let's get back to the lesson.
This is Misha.
Oh, Misha, sorry. See,
Yeah.
I learned so much today. This is the second name I mispronounced. Misha.
Well, it's actually Misha, but a lot of people call me Misha.
Misha. Okay, I'll call you Misha then. I don't want
Thank you.
I don't want to be second best here, okay? Just kidding. So Misha and Laiba. Okay, that's very beautiful names. Okay, so basically what happened was, going back to the main topic. How much time we have? Oh, we only have 4 minutes. Wow, time flies. So we were talking about these tribes, the Jewish tribes of Medina of that time. I don't want you guys to make any generalization about Jewish people overall, because some people make that mistake, and that's very unfortunate. Okay, so the Banu Qainuqa, at some point, I guess, given all these tensions which were developing, they kind of started to side with the Quraysh of Mecca, which were the non-Muslims of Mecca, and who had already fought a battle with the Muslims of Medina at Badr, which you guys remember in the class. And they sided with them, and then there was some kind of animosity developing, and that ended up with some sort of some battle between the Kanuka tribe and the Muslims of Medina, and there were some like various little events that took place that led to that, which I don't want to. I don't think I have the time to get into the details. But at any rate, when that encounter took place, the Muslims, kind of they put a siege on their area, and that lasted for about 15 days. And at the end of that, the Banu Kanuka, they agreed to surrender, and they were expelled from the area to go to some other place. I think that place is called Azrimat. I don't know. I don't remember seeing this name. So I think that's pretty much what we will cover, given that we're kind of just hitting the end of the hour here. But I do want.
Question.
Yes, please. I love questions.
What happened to our elder teacher?
I think he just had something come up unexpectedly, so inshallah, he'll be back next week.
Oh, okay.
So we were just, trying to respond to something that happened in the last day or
Can I
so.
say something?
Yes, please.
It was really nice meeting you.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
I already know you though.
I know, you know me. We do really fun stuff in Urdu class too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I join the Urdu class with my.
Oh, you do? Very nice. Okay. Well, I think we're almost out of time. So I thank all of you for attending, and I thank all of you for your attention and for your patience with somebody who's filling in for the real teacher. Okay. And enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And inshallah, your teacher, Dr. Munir, will be back next week. All the best. Assalamu alaikum. Let me hear